next up is agenda review and amendments. When we put the agenda together, we did not put check warrants in, so we'll put that in as old business under D.
I think you could probably, what I want to say is all right for open session, but I would like to kind of remind us that maybe by October, we should schedule a time to talk a little bit about negotiation strategy and preparation. It comes upon us quickly, and I would hate to wait until the last minute and kind of react. So however you want to handle it, Julie and Chris, but at some point I think we should we'd sit down and talk. The other thing I would ask the board to consider, Greg Gervais, longtime MVU board member, has been a leader in negotiations for a number of years. It might be good at some point to invite Greg in and let him give us a little historical background of some of the things that have happened the last 2 or 3 times. There have been some pretty significant changes in, I think, not only strategy but outcomes since Jack McCarthy left and Winton came on. So it's just something to throw out there. I know that Chris, Eric, and I are on teacher, I believe, contract negotiations, and you never can start too early getting ready because you'd like to go out the gate and get it done. And so that's the end of my speech for right now.
We do have a new union president, and we both, we met this summer and we talked about how it's going to be a busy year and we're all planning on working together. So
Good.
I think we should be exchanging letters in September or early October at the latest. So it'd be good to have a negotiation committee strategy session or a strategy session of the full board in
However.
yeah, that's, thank you.
Another possible future agenda topic, I'm thinking probably sooner than later, is the Highgate bond. You need to start talking about getting a construction manager. I'm thinking maybe even the next meeting, at least start the process.
Yep, I did have some conversations with Scott Martin, and he is supposed to be coming to get all that information, and I had come up with a timeline, so I'm hoping he was going to reach out pretty soon.
Okay.
When he had time to kind of think about it.
Okay.
So beyond that, as far as the only other adjustment to the agenda really is I don't have hiring updates, but
Right.
I've got nothing to add.
Okay, on to correspondence, visitors, and public comments. We do have some public.
Hello everyone. Those of you who don't know me, I'm James Sullivan. I'm involved with the Ag Committee, the advisory committee for the MVU school. So I'm just here to sit in, and we got a couple of things that need to be happening. So I've missed a couple meetings, so I'm just trying to catch up and see what people are available. So I'd like to talk to you.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good to see you. Good to see Jim. He's done a marvelous job with the advisory committee. We went from a complaint-based operation to, I think, a commendation operation, and it basically came down to communications, you and Jen DeSorga and a few other people. So it's me. I know Richard Flint and I both were frustrated at times. Richard probably more than I was, but I think you kind of turned it around.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other correspondence or public comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the July 16th meeting.
I'd make that motion.
Second.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
I have a quick edit under business office update. It says Laura went over the finance schedule with the finance time. It should just be committee, finance committee.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
That was That's really it.
Hearing no other, all those in favor of approving the minutes from July 16th as edited, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Motion,
One abstention.
motion carries 6-0-1. Okay, presentations. Review of the MVSD Google Sites and websites. Robert.
Now can I have your cord, Julie?
Yeah, maybe. Here you go.
Oh, you gotta give me the whole thing?
Well,
He's generous.
is it the wrong size for yours?
So I want to make sure that we can all get into our email. For starters, I'll go over a couple of things. These are just some notes so I don't forget. I want to go through the website and look at our shared drive for the MVSD board. But all of that is contingent upon making sure that we can get into our email to start. So I'll demo that. And if you've got a device, it's a great time to log in, and I'll make sure you can log in and get in there. So whether it's an iPad or a computer, the directions are fairly the same for all. And let me see if we can zoom this in a little bit. The easiest way to do this is to go right to the MVSD Schools website, and on MVSD Schools, there's a link right to the email.
Okay, so is that www.mv?
You don't even need www. You can
Oh,
put
you
it
don't
if you
need
want,
that?
but if you just type in MVSD Schools, just the part right there in green,
MVSD school.
MVSD Schools, and make sure it's plural, .org. Yeah, forget about the school board is because I clicked on a link, and the HTTPS, you don't need to put that in, it'll go in automatically. So when you bring that up, and this site is always, as usual, under construction, we're working on it. But you should see that link to MVSD Mail. You can get to Gmail in a lot of ways, but that link makes it handy because when you click on it, it'll populate this part of the email address for you. So all you have to do is put in your first name dot last name at that point.
My little computer will get only to school and it kicks back to the baseball game I was watching last night.
Was it a good game though? I mean,
Yeah, the Red
You can-
Sox stink. They won.
we got time for just the highlights, Don, if you want.
Yeah. Okay. No, I'd like to be able to do it, and I'm doing what I'm supposed to, but my computer doesn't believe it. It's iPad. Okay. Okay, keep going. Don't wait for me. I'll come by your office.
Yep, you just type it in now.
Yeah, I did twice, and I got to see what it does. It goes back to Major League Baseball. Yeah, it just keeps kicking back there.
Let's type it in. Let's see.
Yeah, MSVD. I got it. School.
I tried this, I didn't get this far.
Schools. Oh, it is schools. Okay.
Yep, just like that, and just hit go.
Yep. Should. Okay.
I don't think you're connected to the internet, so that's a different.
Okay.
So unfortunately, you're not connected. We
All
can
right.
connect you afterwards.
Okay.
if you want, so
All right. I thought I was. I've used this here before.
That's why it keeps going back to what
That's,
we had
yeah, that's
open
why it's going
before.
back to.
Yep.
So when you do connect, and I can help out and be available afterwards too.
Okay.
But
First
when you connect, enter your password, and I'm using the same one, which is that default password. Anybody still need that? The default from before, MVSD Schools, MVSD 2019 exclamation. So get that if you need it. And I'm gonna shrink that down a little bit so you can see. Maybe.
I never can remember the password here either, even though I've used this twice. So I'll do it. I'll come
Sorry,
up
my
with
screen is larger. There we go. I know it's hard to see, but this will be your email, your inbox, such a Gmail. If you haven't used Gmail, I can help you out with that. But it's fairly basic. Things should come into the inbox. I do want to point out that it's kind of hard to see. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit on it. There's a gear over here that you can do your settings. And when you go in, I won't go into all of them, but when you go into settings is where you can change your password, you can change your signature, out of office, those kinds of things. So I want to make sure I point those two things out. So getting in, go to the website, click MVSD email. Somebody say they couldn't.
I had trouble, yeah, that's why I talked to you.
Yeah, did you try since I threw that link on the webpage?
No.
Okay, so let's give that a shot and then give me a call or something, or stop in the office. And
So the first thing we have to do is get in there and then create our own passwords.
well, the first password will be the one that I gave you last meeting,
Okay.
which I can give that again. And then you should change that when you get in there.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember if I set it to force you to change. I don't know if anybody remembered. I did set it to force to change. So you should go into settings and change that password. Yeah.
Especially since you've set it on camera twice.
Yeah.
It'd probably be good.
So you want to go in before you start having school board emails shoot around all over. Yeah. Kids don't watch this, right? The next piece of this, once you get into your email, these little boxes in the upper corner will get you to your drive, your Google Drive. And again, it's hard to see over here on the right. And I just want to point that out because Julie has created and shared with you. Let me resize here. So when your drive comes up, all of your Google Drive, you can see Julie's board agenda is in here. In your shared drives, on your left-hand side in shared drives, you should have MVSD board 2019-20. If you don't, for some reason, we've missed you as far as members go, but I think we've got everybody. Julie's usually pretty good about that.
So this will come up automatic through our email?
Not your email, but let me go back to that again. When you're looking at your email, and I apologize that this doesn't all fit on one.
We made a default email so that you can see it without.
On the right-hand side, there are like 9 checkered boxes, upper right. And when you click on that, it's off the screen, there's the Google Drive folder. So from your email, you click on Drive.
Yeah.
Yep. And then when you click on Drive, then you would get those shared drives.
So it'll automatically bring you to the shared.
Whatever I've shared with you.
Whatever she
Absolutely.
shared. Yeah, you can also go to that site, drive.google.com, and skip the email part, but so usually you're logged into your email, it makes it a little easier. So, so the shared drive that you've got should be this team drive, and within there, Julie is creating a folder for each meeting. So anything pertaining to that meeting, all of the agendas will be in there, and any handouts that she'll have should be sticking in there. So if you look at 716, or actually 86 tonight's, these are all of the files associated with that.
Is this information available to the public?
No.
Only to the board?
This is the board's drive to keep their materials in.
Yeah.
All right.
So this drive is private to only people who are members of the MVSD board, and you have to log in using either your email or Google Drive. It's the same account. So log into that first, and then you get to the shared drive. And I believe you've set it up, Julie, so they can actually put things into this drive as well. I don't remember for sure, but
Don't know. I think that everything should go through Purette or me.
yep. Probably.
Because they're items that are related to a particular board agenda, item.
Yep.
And I am going to talk about putting the newsletters on the website in some way in the future so that gets up there too. It's another communication. But things like the contract with the VisBit unemployment piece, it's just nice for the board members to have access to it ahead of time so they can read it through if they're interested in the details of it, etc.
So email and Drive, same account.
Yep.
Make sure we can get into that. And like I said, I can help you out, try to help you get logged in as well as we can. If we get Dawn online first, we'll start there, and I'll stick around to make sure we can do that. The other piece that I just wanted to share briefly was the website itself. And I'll just go right back to MVSD. A couple of resources that I wanted to point out One is for employees. The employee portal is only accessible. This would be links to their, not the direct link, but to financial information, HR information. They'd be able to log in. So the link to log in would be hidden behind that. So you have to log in first to your mail and then get to the portal. So we've got some security there. Obviously the mail link that I mentioned. But the school board page is probably where you'll go most often. And you can see the schedule is on here. The calendar, again, it's off to the side. It's a little bit cut off here. Everyone's names, phone numbers. If anything is incorrect, please let me know. Now that you've got that email, you can just email me. But let me know on that. And then any archived board minutes and agendas are in here as well. So you can get, you can go back. So I want to make sure those are there, and I don't see the archive link, so I'll make sure Rusty gets the archive link on there. But they will be. The archive to board minutes from FNW as well will be there. All the schools will be there.
Robert, where do you think we should put the link to the public access TV?
I think it should be under school board. I mean, it could be under information as well, general information. The policies also. I'm glad I clicked on that. District policies are in here as well. I know that sometimes you'll need to access those. I would think public access could be a drop down beneath school board meetings.
Yep.
You could also put it right with the minutes, the video right after the minutes. There's a couple of ways that we could do it.
Okay.
So,
I just know that in some of our websites before, it wasn't easy to find.
yeah.
And it should be right there, easy to find.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the websites are dynamic, and if some time goes by, things get shifted around. The link's not in the same place all the time. And certain things like like minutes agendas, you want that link to be persistent in the same place. And videos, obviously. Yeah, so that's pretty much all I have. I don't know if there are specific questions, and like I said, I'll stick around for a bit and make sure we can get in if there's time, or if there are any specific questions I can work on.
This weekend.
What's that?
I'll get on it this weekend.
Yeah, just let me know and we can work on it. I won't be here Monday, Tuesday,
That's all right.
but I'll be back.
I'll find you.
Okay. I
Scroll
don't.
down through the board members again.
Sure.
Yes,
I want that.
we know.
Thank you, Siri.
So,
She's always listening.
Yeah, I know.
So does this replace the Northwest
Yes.
website?
Yep. Yeah, that other site is still active, but it won't be updated any
Is
longer.
it linked to this one?
It's not linked directly, no. So we're taking information from that one. Like today, we're taking all of the staff forms and policies, not policies, staff forms, help forms, and so forth, and putting those on the MVSD site.
For people that don't know this website's there, wouldn't it be nice to have a link on the Northwest website?
From the other one.
To
yes.
get from that one to get to this one?
Yeah, I believe the other one is linked to this one. This one's not
Okay.
linked back to the other
Yeah,
one.
that's fine. But I was thinking we want to have links so they can get to this
Yeah,
one.
I can double check that, but I'm pretty sure that's on there.
Would it make sense to just redirect?
A lot of that information is like individual school boards and is off and older, and we wanted to just redo it and start fresh. I'm working directly with Rusty Gregory on the website, and so he's starting with a clean slate on this one. So we're just moving stuff, transitioning stuff over.
So then that one, will it eventually be phased?
Yeah, we
taken
expect
down?
to keep it in place for the remainder of this year. With a lot of, it's not just the website and emails; it's using those emails to sign into other resources. So we want to make sure we give people a full year to transition out of it. So yeah, we're taking all of the bits of information from that site and putting them into this one.
well, I'd like to give you a suggestion.
Sure.
I'm not a nitpicker, but I sometimes do kind of think a little bigger than I should. I would suggest that on the list of school board members, you
Yep.
put all the members on in alphabetical order, and then next to it put the town. I think we're beyond thinking of Swanton, Franklin, and Highgate. We're thinking of a board. And I think if it started with, I don't know if maybe Devon may be the first one, but I think it would be
Jen,
nice
so
to have his name and then
Put the town
Franklin.
after the name. Is that what you're saying?
What's that?
Put the town that's listed here after
Right.
the individual's name.
Right.
Sure.
And then
That's
sort
detailed.
the whole thing by last name rather than by town first.
Yeah, like that last
Yep.
sort of. That way you go to it, who's on the board? Oh, Devon Batchelor. Oh, he's from Franklin. And so,
Yep.
Just a different way of looking at it.
Yeah, I think I just put this up
Right.
Not
according
where
to how
we're
it was
from.
given to me, so yeah, we can rearrange that any way you want.
I mean, maybe the rest of them, but when I looked at it, it said, we're still back thinking like that.
Sure.
I like that.
Yeah, any other questions, suggestions?
I do want to point out that it's under construction. We're going to have pictures of students and things that are happening in schools, and it's not just going to be boring grids of information and agendas. We want to make it something that really shows off what's happening. in our
Like
schools, too.
entertainment at the Swanton School Board meeting could have been listed there.
I still don't know who's going to sing.
Doesn't have to be singing.
Still waiting for it.
Is there a link when you go to look up MVU schools and you bring up their website? Is there a link to this? Or is there someplace?
There's not a link
Is
back
there
to
someplace on
this
there
yet.
that says to go to this?
Not yet. We haven't done that with school sites. So we'll be updating the school sites. We wanted to make sure this was in place and, that we got all of the documents over that we needed to get over.
So the elementary school sites and the middle high school school
link back.
will have links to
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, right now this one's linked to those, but they aren't linked back at this time. But we'll do that
I
for sure.
was curious because I know a lot of people I go on the MVU
Right.
school site
Yeah.
Of
to
course.
see.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely link back to this one, publicize it. Yep. Go, Julie.
Okay. Getting a message saying something's forbidden. That's pretty strong language. I don't know what it was.
I don't really need the time tonight to get on. I'm not
Sure.
worried about that. Yeah, go ahead and keep the meeting going.
Well, you know where to find me.
I will, yeah, before the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Robert.
You're welcome.
I appreciate you doing that. I just knew it was a number of people, so it was good to do it all together.
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, good job.
Okay, on to new business. As Julie said earlier, we don't actually have any hiring updates, so we're going to move right on to B, which is SRO grant opportunity.
So, I had a meeting with the lieutenant at Swanton PD, and he shared an email and a grant opportunity with me that for a grant for a school resource officer in our elementary schools. And the grants, years and years ago when I was first teaching, there were these grants, and you would have, the state, I think, pays for 3 years of the position in your school, and then the school agrees to do the 4th year. Well, then the grants went away, but people were happy with their school resource officers, and it became a part of many schools. And we certainly have had one for a long time up at MVU. We have police officers in Swanton that are trained to be school resource officers, and so this opportunity came up again. Should the board be interested, the police will apply for the grant, and the position would likely be shared between Swanton and Highgate because that's where the greatest need is. Unfortunately, we certainly do have lots of opportunities when we do need to have the police present in our building. And what is nice about a school resource officer is that they are present in the building, building relationships with kids. So it's not just I show up when there's trouble. And so it's pretty positive for students, for climate, and then also as a resource for the building in multiple ways. And if the board, where I left it with the lieutenant is to go ahead and start the grant. If the board is not interested, we'll pull it because there is a tight timeline for that. And I also thought if the board is interested, we could have him come in and talk more about the program. Because I have always taught in schools with SROs since I was a paraeducator in grad school in Winooski. And my kids were little in school. There were school resource officers. There was one there. So I've always partnered, especially in my position in special education. I just always felt like he was a resource for us when there were tough situations with children. They could really build positive relationships with kids, and it was positive. I know a lot of area schools as well. Have moved to school resource officers. I have not talked to Pat about it. I did talk to Dina briefly, and she's very much in support of the position. So I wanted to throw it out there and get the pulse of the board, whether you're interested in moving forward, or at least for more information.
Yeah, I think it'd be great to hear from the lieutenant, get some more information. I mean, nothing jumps out as like why we wouldn't. So, yeah.
Is it that same funding structure that you mentioned, 3 years?
It is. It is 3 years. It is the equivalent of a veteran teacher. We would not employ the person. The police department would employ the police officer.
And then in the 4th year?
In the 4th year, it's a contract that you sign. It would be incumbent upon us to find efficiencies to make sure that it's not an additional cost, but it's something that we make room for in our budgeting. What's nice is you'd have 3 years to plan for.
Right.
Right.
So is this something that came up, or is it a need, or just an opportunity that came up? Because I mean, I know little of Highgate and Swanton's situation. I've never been told or seen where Franklin, like you said, needed this kind of support. Obviously, Joyce would have a better idea of that, but I mean, I'm not opposed to it, but I also don't want to dive into something that's not needed
Right.
as well. So I'd certainly, like you said, want more information.
Right. I think what I will do, in this week, a lot of our principals are away still or just coming back. So we're not having this, having administrators at this meeting. Next month, the 20th, August 20th, will be in Franklin, and administrators will be at that meeting. And so one of the things I can talk to them about that we'd like to hear from you, what your perspective is about the need. Some of the things I could tell you that I'd rather not do on camera because they're about individual circumstances that have come up with families or student issues or whatever. I think it's fair to say, Dina would say, there is a need. The police sometimes have to spend a good deal of time here on call. And so it would be more beneficial if there could be a preventative aspect to that with children.
It's not always about the kids here either.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's about the adults, not necessarily those that work
Yes.
here, but parents. I guess I would really like to hear from administrators, particularly
Absolutely.
Joyce, because if we're going to do it and we're going to build on what little I know about SROs from MVU and being a superintendent, it's building relationships. And so if you're trying to build relationships with, say, 5th and 6th graders in particular, but any student, then I would make sure that if Joyce could see a value of somebody being there a day a week to start that building relationship. Truancy is a big thing. I don't think it is in Franklin, but truancy is a big thing in this district. It's a big thing in the state of Vermont. And sometimes it's really strange. I know from some of my business experiences, the kids who just don't get to school because there's nobody making them go to school. So I'd like to know more about it, but as far as saying I'm enthusiastic, I'd like to make sure that all schools could see some gain from it in building relationships so that when the students in the 9th grade and the police are called to MVU, at least they've had some idea that we're not all bad guys.
Well, and I think the two SROs between the middle high school,
Right.
they'd know each other well. So any other opinions? So I can speak with the lieutenant and get more information, see if he's able to come to a board meeting next time and see if the principals can speak out at the next meeting about their thoughts.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I would like to hear both from the lieutenant and mainly from the administrators. Like Pete said, I want to see if there is value in this or not.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
So at this point, we won't have any action. We'll table it to the next
Yep.
meeting. Next one is Visbit unemployment compensation insurance transaction.
Transition.
Transition.
This is really just informational. I'm planning on bringing you a contract next month if it's something that you are interested in, but I do think that it's worth investigating. Currently, we pay, or MVSD is a reimbursable employer for unemployment insurance, and so if someone makes a claim, it's just established by the Department of Labor what our contribution to that is, and they bill us directly and we pay it. It's tough to budget for. We never know when it's going to happen, and we've been hit with some very high expenses, you know, $10,000, $15,000 in the last couple of years that are tough to budget for. We would like to investigate what Visbit offers. So the Vermont School Board Insurance Trust offers an unemployment insurance where we would be part of a pool of 200 schools that currently participate, and then we would pay a flat rate based on what tier we are placed in that pool. And so it would be much easier to budget for, and then we reap the benefit of those lower claiming schools, and it's a 3-year average as well, so you don't get the peaks and valleys. The other benefit, well, there's actually a couple other benefits. You're only paying through Visbit, they're only paying on the first $8,000 of gross wages, whereas if you do it the way that we're paying right now with a reimbursable model, it's based on the first 17 or 18%. It changes every year. So I think there's going to be some cost savings there over time, depending on claims, obviously. But and also, they basically help you administer your unemployment claims. So you're still working with the Department of Labor, and we're still providing all the information, but it's another set of eyes, expertise, input, advisement, really. So it's not all just on our office trying to advocate to not pay claims, or if we think something's not our liability. So I guess I'm just asking if the board agrees with us pursuing that. And if I can bring you an agreement next month if it turns out to be something that we find to be a fiscally responsible decision. There's a lot of work that has to go into it, so before we did a lot of that, I wanted to bring it to you guys. There's about 3 years of gross wages on every single school district that has to be put together and organized by amounts and names, and so it's quite a bit of data that they need to do that.
You said we've had some pretty good sized claims. Is that because people were not reemployed?
It's typically when somebody is terminated. Though it can be if somebody is non-renewed.
Or it could be if someone, paraprofessionals never used to be allowed to receive unemployment, and sometimes that is now allowable, even though they have a return to work date. Mm-hmm. In certain circumstances, we are paying on those people, but and the length of time that we're paying is it has been extended also. So I think it's 18 months or something that we're in that calculation. So
it's a long exposure, much more so.
So this would give us a more predictable.
Be more predictable, and I think because it's only 8% of the gross wages, and I think we will be a low risk, in a low risk tier that we get placed in, hopefully. And so I think it will save money overall too. Yeah.
Do we have a workers' comp with?
With Visbit, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Unemployment is the only insurance offering that when you're a Visbit member, you have the option to opt in or opt out. And so we would have liked to be investigating this earlier, but with everything going on with the transition to MVSD, we didn't have time, but they allow you to join at the end of any quarter.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I'd like to know more about it because I didn't realize that we were self-insured, but I think that's quite a gamble now that we're a consolidated district.
Especially these days. And you're saying
Yeah.
the 8% versus our 18% that we're doing.
17 to 18, I think it varies, but right now, according to the Department of Labor, that we're at 17 to 18% of our gross wages. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'd be interested to see the financial analysis on it, just because I'm sure there are admin costs and things that we then have to pay if we're part of this. So how does that
We
compare?
don't pay admin costs.
But to join this?
No, we already are a part of Visbit.
Okay.
So we would just become a member of the unemployment insurance as well.
So there's no dues and fees or anything like that?
No.
No.
See, we have our health insurance there, we have our dental
Workman's
insurance
comp.
there, and our
Workers'
workers'
comp.
comp there, so.
They provide a lot of other resources too for facility management and those kinds of things too that we don't pay any additional for. It's part of belonging to the group, yeah.
In the history though, why haven't we done this before? Just curious.
That's a good question.
Okay.
I'm doing it as soon as it was mine to do or mine to think about.
Okay.
Well, I think maybe for a long time, you know, with the paraeducators, all you did was write them a letter, guarantee them an employment, and they couldn't get that. I mean,
Yeah, and that has
and-
definitely
and
not
I
been the case
think
as of
so-
late.
I think the playing field's changed a little bit too.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you had multiple employers too, so I think it,
Yeah, you
Makes
know,
it a little
MVU
easier.
might get hit one year, none of the elementary might not get hit at all, but now we're all in the same pool.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
In response, I was kind of being a little a flip there, but this is the kind of stuff, I hate to say, that when you are one district, it is easier to do. I don't have to go and do 6 sets of paperwork and work with this on 6 different entities. I hate to say it, but this is the kind of thing that's easier to tackle when it's one entity, one legal entity that I have to deal with.
Well, and your risk is higher as a larger employer
As well,
rather
yeah.
than smaller employers. That maybe it was easier to take the gamble that this year
Yeah.
it won't hit our budget.
And we definitely have
Yep.
seen an increase the last couple of years. They've hit hard at a couple of schools, and that's, we didn't budget for it because we didn't know. So I guess I'm just looking, if it's something you want me to pursue, I would be bringing you an agreement because we would need an agreement signed about 40 days ahead of time with Visbit if we're going to join the beginning of the next quarter. I will put that in that shared site so everyone can read it. And I'll get them all the information that they need if it's something you want me to do.
Yeah, I guess I'd be interested before we make a decision to see what the cost would be, what we'd be paying under this plan versus our.
Well, you
our
won't know
long
what you're
range.
going to be. You won't know what you're going to be paying.
Well, or what
It's gonna
risk
be
level
based
we're
on-
going to be in, or like, can they tell us any of that ahead of time?
I can get as much information as I can. They will not be able to give you a specific dollar amount until we establish our tier, everyone else's tier for that quarter, and then they start to see claims come in, is what she explained to me, but I can get everything that I can from them.
I think one thing to keep in mind, and if people have questions, we can join, and then if after a year we don't feel it was a wise thing, we can get back out.
You can join for a quarter,
Yeah.
and then, 3
My
months.
experience with Visbit is over the years that I've been on school boards and administration has saved hundreds of thousands of dollars. But I've been around a long while, but it's a lot of money, yeah. They're well run.
They're a resource that we use quite a bit in our
You
office.
pay no matter what, whether you have claims or not. Yeah. So no matter, you're gonna pay no matter whether you have claims or not, right?
We're gonna pay based on the amount of employees that we have that make more than $8,000, well, up to $8,000, excuse me, so you pay, but, and this is all stuff that I'll put in the shared site. But basically, we will get assigned, a rate, but there's a whole giant calculation that Visbit will do to assign us a rate, and then they'll pool that with everybody else, the other 200 members that they have, and then it's a 3-year average. That's why I'm saying I'm not sure at the next meeting I'll have all that financial information, but I will bring exactly what they are able to give me. I mean, the rates are low for the first $8,000. Some are as low as 5 cents. So, and
It's
I think it's a
insurance.
good indicator. I mean, I have talked to a couple of these business managers, but there's 200 SUs and school districts in the state that are using them, which is a pretty good indication of the success of the program. But,
It's smart to have insurance.
sorry.
It's smart to have insurance.
Right, and
I mean,
not
it's one of
just-
those things that when you don't need it, it's sort of like, oh, well, am I really gonna pay for that? But you get that hit and you
Yeah.
very quickly realize that it's worth it. So
Yeah.
I think getting more information would be great.
Yep.
I don't know because I haven't been involved with them directly for many years, but I do believe they do education and they share information. If you're part of unemployment, they
Yes.
let you know, this happened in Brattleboro and maybe you better look at your policy or you better be careful so that if something does go down in the state, that you might not find out otherwise if you're a member of this unemployment you get.
Right. That's definitely true. I don't think I need a formal motion. I just wanted to, before we looked into it, I just wanted to make sure that was okay.
Okay, on to the first reading of the student conduct and discipline policy.
So this policy is straight from the Vermont School Board's model policy with Missisquoi Valley School District in there. It is exactly the same as the policy Franklin Northwest and all our schools had. It is a recommended policy, that's why you didn't have it before, but all of our handbooks typically reference the fact that we have a student conduct and discipline policy. It does some definition of weapon, school, expelled, and knife. We had talked about student responsibilities. It refers to the fact that there will be procedures in handbooks and discipline system will be done by administration. And then all of the federal and state statutory references are there. So it is nice to have. We did send it out to the principals. They didn't have any comment. I think it's just the fact that they're just used to having it. So there is nothing new and nothing different. This would just be our first reading. We wouldn't be adopting it this time, but my hope is that we could have it adopted at our next meeting, and then the new school year handbooks could be referencing the Missisquoi Valley policy. From now on, I'll be bringing you policies that have gone through the administrative team and they've talked about it, but this one had less to discuss.
Is this one that we can change any of the wording, or is it similar to some of the previous
if you'll
ones?
see just about all the definitions, for example, that have statutory reference. So, what expelled means, is always, is both state and federal definition of expulsion. Anytime a student is removed from school beyond 10 days is considered a long-term suspension or expulsion. You can't expel a student. The longest you can expel a student is for the remainder of the year or a year, and that's only for firearms. And everything else is typically 90 days. So that doesn't mean other plans aren't made for students, but these are one of those topics when we're talking about conduct and discipline. There are a lot of laws, both state and federal, that apply.
As a former MVU board member, I would ask us to move this as quickly as possible with the opening of school. I would not want to be in a position that we didn't have this policy in place for the district.
If you'd like, I will put up another survey, so if people have comments on the policy, you can send them to me. But I do, I think more likely would be if there are questions about what things mean, please reach out to me and I'll be happy to email and explain the language around.
Why does knife have to be separate?
Yeah,
Knife
that
is a
was my
weapon.
question.
I would say the same thing.
Like, why?
Because it's defined in statute separately.
It's still a weapon.
So I could have this pen and I'm allowed to have this pen.
Right.
It only becomes a weapon when I use it inappropriately, which I will not model on camera. A knife of greater than a certain length, no matter what I'm doing with it, is in violation of policy. So I can't have, what typically happens, especially in a rural community, is somebody has got, a knife in their pocket from work or the farm, and they forget and they try. So, we want to have policies that are respectful of the student who says, oh, Principal Collins, I forgot, and here it is, and I turn it right over to the SRO or to the principal, and there's never any incident. That's very different than a student doing something with it or secreting it or showing it to someone, that kind of thing. But otherwise, a weapon can be anything. I've had a cell phone be a weapon. There's just about anything. I've had
But it's
pencils
split
be
up
weapons.
More than once in this whole thing. I get it, I understand what you're saying, but
Some attorney must have told the people at the SBA that that's the way to break it out.
It doesn't,
it could be based on
you,
that.
if you read that definition to me,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say knife.
And then the second page too.
Yes, I mean, it's a very, it is, go ahead, I'm sorry.
The guidelines for student behavior also include prohibitions against the possession by students of knives, weapons, and dangerous instruments.
It's purposely vague because in the moment, so there, in my career, I have had kindergartners who brought bullets to school because they found it and thought it was cool. That's a dangerous instrument. You've got, as a principal, you've got to, that would be a violation of the firearms, federal firearms law. So there are any kinds of variety of things that can be construed to be a dangerous weapon. You're right, a baseball bat. You know, we give kids sharp things in school to work with, and we should, because they need to use tools, learn to use tools, arrows for archery, etc. So some of this language is very carefully placed in law for people to work with for all of those kinds of circumstances.
I get it, but my original comment about the weapons was they were referring to firearms.
Yeah,
And they were not referring to any other things.
yep.
I don't know, I just think weapon is,
Well, and that is why I want to later bring to you our firearms policy. We had to have at least that language because it's federal. And the district I was in before had more restrictive language in it that I want to show to the administrative team first and then bring to the board. Because I think it's still focused on firearms, but it is, the board can be stricter than the law in some cases. Not all cases, but in some cases. So I will send something out to you that's like a survey, and it'll be in your email, and you just click on the link and you'll have an opportunity to put some questions or comments down. And our hope would be that we can adopt the policy. Essentially, it's saying that there are some prohibited things, that we expect people to conduct themselves appropriately, and the school has the authority to discipline students. Now, we don't need the policy. We don't have to have it because the principals have the authority right now in statute to discipline students for misconduct. It strengthens the communication to have a policy from the board that says, yeah, this is what we expect.
I'm not saying it's bad to have both
Oh,
things
no.
in there, I just didn't know if we were considering redundant.
No.
That's all.
This almost seems like a cover letter, because this doesn't seem like on its own, because it's tied to so many other things. Like, you know, that's why I sent you that email of the policies that are out there, because, and I think it's good because it's like a summary.
Yes.
You know, everybody sees what it is, but we don't know what the punishment is.
And
we
that's
don't know-
procedure.
Right.
Absolutely. And that's what the administrators do. So the board sets policy, which is generally very broad
Right.
and just is very directive that there will be a procedure that will handle this, that, or the other. Which is also good because we want policy to be broad and goal-oriented, and then the way to get there educationally is developed at the administrative level and shared. However, if you were to then say, you know, we're not happy with the discipline procedures we have where we've categorized certain infractions a certain way, we think that's too punitive, we want to maybe change some things, that the administrative team can do that. And every time you do that, you don't need to have a whole formal policy process. Doesn't mean that you wouldn't be sharing what you're doing with the board,
But you have to have those procedures to make this stand
Yes,
up, right? Because this
exactly.
won't
this
do
is
any
a
good if you
reflection
don't,
of law.
right, if you don't have the procedures behind it.
Yes, this is a reflection.
25 years ago, if you'd looked at a policy manual in most junior, senior high schools, you'd have seen the procedures right there
Yeah.
with a policy, because, and I'm going to tell you, I had some excellent school board members, but many of us did not know the difference between a procedure and a policy. And so as time went on, attorneys advised people, get your policy, administrative, do your procedures. Because sometimes people would talk, even principals, like procedure was the policy. It's not, it's the procedure that got it. So it's kind of that big umbrella.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a good thing to have on something like this.
I agree. It makes it very clear that the board expects there to be clear discipline procedures in schools. Thank you. There'll be plenty more, let me tell you.
Any other comments or questions?
If we should run into, I think some good things have been raised. We should run into some challenges, Julie. I would encourage you before the next meeting to get our legal counsel to say, is there something wrong? I think this is good. I've used them for years, but, let's say somebody around the table tonight comes up with something that really, we're kind of, yeah, that's good, but what should we do? I would hope to just call our attorney, run it by our attorney to say, is that a minefield then?
Yes, because sometimes our well-intentioned contributions
Unintended consequences.
have consequences that are unforeseen. Yes, for sure. That's it for that for me.
Okay, on to old business. The lease agreement, we don't really have a need for executive session because we currently don't have a lease agreement.
I can give an update though. So we met with David Fosgate, our landlord. We did talk about paving. He is getting some quotes. At this time, he's not in a position to put that out there, but he's going to have some quotes, talk about that with me, and then we will bring some options back to the board. What we're going to do in the interim, because it's taking a little bit longer because of that, is I'll have a memo that will state that we'll be continuing to pay the same amount and under the same lease, and we'll both sign off on that until we come to terms. Because he was like, "Oh, don't worry, you can stay." I said, "No, we need, auditors like to see pieces of paper." So we'll have
not any retroactive pay, right?
we'll have a memo until we come with options for a new lease, parking lot, no parking lot, etc.
And for the board members, it might be new. I don't know if we started this before, but I think we really need to look at it. If we decide not to, but I think it's something for the employees. They deserve at least our attempt.
So can we just do a 1-year lease and if they're not ready to do some of the driveway, so it gives us options?
And I don't want to get too much into negotiations with a contract, but he wanted to have a multi-year. And so we're discussing how long is multi-year and what's in the best interest of the district.
I think that's our leverage.
Yep. So we certainly are looking at all of those things. So that's all I have for that right now.
Okay, on to FY20 MVSD food service management contract.
It seems funny not to see Sheldon up there.
Yes.
Yeah, it does.
I'm just passing out all the summary that we received from the state when they review the bid that we received for food service management for this. It's actually Highgate, Swanton, and MVU. If you remember, we were trying to get one contract for all of those entities. We received one bid only. We were hoping for more. We did have one email and phone call requesting information and a 1-week extension. We granted that and then we never got a bid. This process, we worked very, very closely with the state. Marnie Carlton in our office is basically on the phone with them 3 or 4 times a week and emailing back and forth to get their approval on everything that we do. But what you're looking at is a fixed price response to our RFP, which is what they require now. And so it's basically a per meal, per plate cost. If you remember, I had very specifically requested that each school building be able to pay their own price and set their own requirements on what they offer, because I think that's important to you guys. And so that's why the prices vary per plate.
And that's not the price of children.
No,
That's the.
this is what we
right,
pay
what
for
we
that to
pay
be provided.
For the
yeah.
service.
Yes. Keeping in mind that they now have to account for commodities, so all of our schools receive federal commodities, an allowance that we purchase products with. That now has to be part of this and reflected in there. It used to be separate and we would reflect it on our finances, but now it's part of this RFP at a fixed price. You know, the reason we went out to bid, we decided to do this and try to group them together was one, because we were moving into MVSD, but Highgate was our first fixed price contract that we had last year, and it was losing money, so the Abbey did not partake in the 1-year renewal that is possible. I'm sorry if I'm not backing up far enough, I'm looking at you. And so their food service management contracts can only ever be 1 year, but after the first year, you're allowed to renew up to 4 more years. So it's a 1-year contract, but you can renew if both parties agree. And if there's a increase written into the original contract, it's usually the NEAT or lower, then you're allowed to do that if you're within those parameters. Highgate was not the Abbey was not in a position to do that with Highgate because they were losing too much money. They undercut themselves with their fixed plate cost.
So is this an increase then?
It is an increase over what they were paying, yep. But if you also remember our conversations before, there's a lot of factors that go into that, a program's success. Free and reduced price, free and reduced lunch percentage of your population is a huge factor, and our free and reduced price percentages have gone down slightly in our schools, which is a good thing, but the reimbursement rate on those meals is then less, so on the paid meals, so it has an impact financially.
What's food away from home?
Where are you seeing food away from home?
Way at the last
Last page.
paragraph under summer lunch. It says CPI for food away from home.
It basically means any of these meals. They're food that's not, anything that's in a food service management program where they're eating here.
Okay. So everything's everything is food away from home, right?
Yes, yeah. Well, here it is. Some schools in really high poverty areas, they do send food home, and I think that might be the difference. They do actually send kids with meals home on a regular basis, even for over weekends.
So looking this over, if you go by category, every category, Highgate's more expensive. Highgate was also the guinea pig for the fixed price, so is that why Highgate's so much more, or is it because Highgate's a smaller school than Swanton and MU?
Highgate's a smaller school.
So, okay, volume.
But you
makes it
do
go
offer you do quite a bit of offerings because that was important to the success of the program. I think that, so yeah, and it's the free, like I said, the free and reduced price percentage also, your percentage of kids that are poverty.
Okay.
Yep. But I'm hoping if we can develop some kind of a baseline at some point here. But quite frankly, the state of Vermont and the child nutrition program is not a lot of help right now as far as helping us develop that baseline. They're new to this as well, and they also have had a tremendous turnover in staff. It's an understatement, actually. And so, they're learning right along with us, so.
You'll see that MVU has the best rates, and that's because we do have quite a volume there.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's based on that.
It is our intent to continue with free breakfast. Some of you will remember that was something we piloted a couple years ago. The previous director of the child nutrition program that agreed to us doing that financially is no longer there. And we got some pushback about how we pay for that this year. I advocated pretty strongly that we would not sacrifice that program, that we were told we could do what we were doing, and I had it documented, and so did the Abbey. And so we are looking to continue with the free breakfast, but what we had to ensure is that we weren't taking the state and federal subsidies to help pay for providing free meals to all students. So we have to use only what is non-program revenue or the money that's paid in by paid lunch students or a la carte items for extra items is the only income that can be used to help supplement that free breakfast program. We think it can cash flow. I've done the analysis on that. I think we can if we come to a point where we can't, if the participation falls and the claim rates fall, we might have to give that up. But I'm fighting really hard because it has been a very successful part of our program, especially in the high school. So
Does the state still support breakfast programs? Because at one time the state did.
they do. There's a community eligibility provision. There's provision 1, provision 2. There's all kinds of ways to feed all free meals to kids. We're not quite at that level of poverty here. And so we're sort of like on the edge, you know? So if we can do this, it's great, but it does cost money to feed everybody. I mean, I didn't give you the numbers, but about 160,000 lunches we feed in a year. Breakfast, about 240,000 breakfasts we serve in a year.
So we don't charge for breakfast and it's open to everybody?
Yes. That started a couple years ago. And it immediately, we had a hard time getting some teachers to buy in because it is a little bit of time in the classroom and it might be a mess or, you know, there were some concerns. And within a month or two, the teachers at MVU that we got the feedback from, we're seeing changes in behavior, changes in social relationships, just happier kids. So that tells you, you know, it's a pretty good indicator that there was a problem before.
If you ever stopped at a bus stop, I haven't been to Franklin, but I've been through Highgate and Enosburg and Swanton, watching kids at the bus with a Pepsi Cola in this hand, maybe a Coca-Cola, I don't know, a bag of chips. Wow.
Those are the lucky ones, I hate to tell you, Don, because there's the other ones that don't have anything at all.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is
Yeah.
let's keep going with a good breakfast.
Yeah, that's what my
I do
goal
think
is.
it's good that it's open to everybody because then the kids that are getting it aren't, you know, they don't
Yeah.
stand out or,
Right.
you know.
All middle and high school kids are hungry. I mean, it's
Yeah,
just,
exactly.
you know, they
Even if they eat breakfast at home at 7 o'clock in the morning, they're hungry
Yeah.
when they get there.
Yeah.
So you
yeah.
need a
That
motion?
age, they're not getting out
Yes,
of bed
you do.
right away to eat breakfast.
I would need a motion to accept the bid as it was received and to have the board chair execute the bid summary and the contract. I have the bid summary, which actually the bid summary becomes your contract, excuse me.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
So you mentioned that Highgate currently has the Abbey, or they did for this past year?
Yeah.
Who had the other contracts?
Oh, no, the Abbey had all of them.
Oh, they did
It's
have
just
all.
they were in, you know how I said that you could renew for 4 years
Yeah.
after the first year? Everybody was in a different cycle.
Oh,
But
okay.
because we were merging and Highgate wasn't renewing and they were the only one that was fixed price, we thought that potentially we would get other vendors to come in and bid, which would be, you know, in our best interest if we could do that because we traditionally haven't had anybody else bid. And I always like to say it's not because we're not happy with the vendor that we have because I think they do a really good job, but just for comparability, you
Competition.
know.
It's tough to compete with somebody who's in the neighborhood. And David does a good job.
Yeah, around the corner.
And I think we serve a lot of meals, but in like the hospital world and the, you know, the universities and
Right.
colleges, this is a very small account for some of these giant corporations, so.
So now all three will be on one account?
They'll be on one. But as I said, the reason you're seeing all the different ones is because we wanted the offerings to be able to be, every school is allowed to have a meal advisory group and they're actually required to. And so they can pick what they want to offer in their building, you know, when they're serving lunch, what, you know, it's all individualized that way. And allows for that flexibility rather than kind of saying, well, we're MBSD, so everybody has to do everything the same. I didn't want the contract to be that way.
Can I ask a quick question about the school lunches? If the kids don't have the money on their account, are they able to still get their lunch and they get floated one day, or are they denied
I think it's up to 2.
They give up
We
to-
have a procedure, and that has been reviewed, and we can revisit it anytime, of course, but each school has had a procedure that they followed. I'm not sure if it'll stay individualized or not at this point, or if MBSD will have one, but there's very specific things that have to happen to collect debt and how parents are contacted and made aware of what they owe, and but there at some point in time emergency lunches are part of our procedure, but I have to tell you that
Nobody
I've never
does it.
seen it happen.
I was just curious
Yeah.
because I had an instance last year, not my child that didn't have money because I put X amount at the beginning before
Beginning
they
of
would
the
start
year,
school
yeah.
to go through.
Yeah.
And then I have little low balance alert
Yeah.
text
Yeah.
messages that I get that are amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, very helpful.
Because then I'm like, what? And then I can hurry up and put money on it through my cell phone.
Yeah.
But and then one day I got a low balance, and I'm like, why do I keep getting? I just put money on the account. So I said, well, why is she eating so many lunches? She's, and so I approached her, and she goes, well, one of the other kids I felt bad for because they couldn't get a lunch because they didn't have any money on their account. And of course I had to have the stern talk of, I'm not buying everybody else's lunch at
Yeah.
school. But yes, I do feel bad. But I was like, I asked, do they get a lunch and then a notification, a phone call from the school saying or
Oh,
something?
yeah, all of that.
Yeah, there's quite a process that happens behind the scenes when there's a concern. And the most of that, the most important piece of that is making sure that families are aware of the resources that are available to them. Because some people don't realize what the threshold to get help with lunches might be. And most of the time, even though a food service management company, if they're communicating, if families will communicate with us, there's more we can do. But if we're sending collection notices or trying to collect money and it's just no response, then that's tough. Because the school district can't afford to pay for everyone's lunch either.
So I don't always read all the stuff that comes in that packet and the mail I'm supposed to fill out for my kids. But is there something in there? Because I know I throw away the guideline thing.
Yeah.
But is there something in there that does state, your child will, reminding the parent your child will receive 1 or 2 lunches?
Last year, I know the procedure went out at the beginning of the year. I don't know if it's going out again at the beginning of this year. It's in some of the handbooks.
It's in some of the handbooks.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yep, I would
Just
have
so that
to.
the parents can't
So
come
they're
back and
aware,
say,
yeah.
well,
We can probably follow up on that, yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
I'm making myself a note.
So with this contract, will students and parents, they won't notice any different from last year? It'll be,
The only thing that they'll notice is that, we set the elementary school paid meal price to be 10 cents increase, a 10-cent increase to $2.65, which is required by the state's guidelines now. But program-wise, no. We built the RFP based on what schools have right now.
Okay, I already have the motion, so all those in favor of accepting the bids as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 7-0.
Can we add that the board chair can sign?
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
that was in the motion.
It was, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's writing at the same time. Thank you.
Usually the chair or vice chair. If the chair disappears this week, it's pretty hot out there. I have to call him.
I won't disappear, I might know, but, revised,
I tabbed it right there, Chris.
revised MVU hot lunch, paid meal price.
So I brought to you a hot lunch paid meal price for the elementary schools, and I neglected to bring you MVU, which is different. It's a different program. They offer a lot more options, and so I'm asking that you approve $2.95 for a paid lunch price at MVU, which is about 30 cents more than what's paid in the elementary schools. I will tell you that there's completely different regulations and guidelines for a high school meal versus an elementary meal, so it's bigger for one. But also MVU, it was important when we initiated their contract a couple years ago that they wanted a lot more options. So I don't know if anybody's ever been to their cafeteria, but they have pizza every day, soup every day, a hot meal every day, sandwiches, ready-made salads. I mean, it's a lot. And so it costs more. There's a paid lunch equity tool that we are required to do. It's a 10-cent increase over last year.
I move that one to approval.
I'll second.
Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the price as presented, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Check warrants.
These are your first check warrants for MVSD for the month of July. And so the Finance Committee members have come in and reviewed bills prior to payment being made. Then the treasurer signs all the checks, but what I do after the end of the month happens is I bring you this summary so you actually know what we in fact did end up paying. And it's broken down by 3 categories: accounts payable, payroll, other disbursements, and payroll deductions. And so I would bring this to you every month, just as sort of a wrap up. If anyone would like it, on the back of what requires signature, I do provide you the software generated reports that give you a check number, who was paid, the amount, those sorts of things.
So I'd entertain a motion to accept check warrants. Accept warrants.
Make a motion to accept the check warrants in the amount of, $1,901,466.56.
Second.
I'll second.
Discussion.
Process working?
It is working. Yes, thank you. I know it's been a lot of time, and I have to bother these people a lot, so I appreciate it.
A lot of money.
But it is working, yeah. Or I think it's working.
Don't hesitate to call.
We're processing bills once a week right now. We're trying to stay on that weekly cycle, and I think it'll benefit us. I think it's nice to stay that on top of things.
2 of 3 is a good idea, right?
2 of 3 is working well. Yep.
Okay, all those in favor of accepting warrants, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, abstention. Motion carries 7-0. Other business, superintendent's report.
So, you look in front of me, here it is. This will be in the folder for you. What you see here is something that I'm going to be working with the school administrators on Monday with. One of the things we're going to be doing is looking at all the mission statements of all of our schools. Nobody's going to change our school mission statements, but the Missisquoi Valley School District is going to have its own mission statement that will likely encompass what's important to all of our schools. And some of the mission statements are pretty old, so it will be interesting to look at it. It's not a Wordle anymore, it's some other software that takes the language of documents and shows you by how large the words are, how often it's used. So I took all of the mission statements of our schools and put them into the software, and it's just interesting. This is how we're going to kickstart the conversation that, school community, students will become just very, success being at the point of the heart. Thought that was very interesting. So we're going to kickstart that conversation and draft some things, and then that will be something that will be brought to the board for the board to then kick around and put its own flavor on it, and then hopefully be something that we adopt formally. We're also going to be talking about core values. That's some work that I like to do with administrative teams as a way to really think about what we value as individuals, what drives us as leaders and as people. And then a lot of schools, even the whole NEASC system, the New England accreditation for secondary schools, they've moved away from mission and vision and into what are your core values. So we may be generating a brainstorm of things that we value. The mission statement is sort of, what are we in the business of doing? But a list of things that we value. I have to say, the work we did in my previous district, the fact that we started with children first and foremost, and that's the very first thing, and that's something that comes up all the time, then help drive decision-making and conversations. Are we keeping kids in the center? Those kinds of things. So that's another piece of work that we're going to be doing and bringing to the board. It's a little easier to start something with the administrative team and then have the board do it than to have big old blank pieces of paper on the wall. I think we may even want a special meeting just for that purpose. So I'm looking forward to doing that with the group. Tanya Hayes and I have actually been following some updates that have happened with Act 173. That's the special ed finance law that's changed. Right before school ended, the Agency of Ed sent out 2 memos that were surprises in change of policy. And superintendents weren't paying attention to it. It was fascinating because it was the last week. Some schools were out of session. And it talked about what should be in a special ed contract. We contract for lots of things. We contract for services in our school. We contract for tuition to outside schools for kids who need that. And there was a lot of conversation and language about how a contract should read and what should be in it. And then buried within there, all of a sudden, was language saying, in specialized schools that serve special ed students, schools like SOAR, schools like the Baird School. Well, much of that should be paid for with general ed money because all kids are entitled to general education, which is true. But these schools have been traditionally IEP placements for students who require something substantially different in terms of setting, which has always been covered under federal law as an eligible special ed expense. So there was a lot of alarm from some that paid attention to that memo. And it wasn't like, oh, we're letting you know we might do this in a couple years. It was June 7th for implementation July 1st. None of the independent schools who would have to be changing how they bill or how they structure contracts were notified of this memo. And recently, the Agency of Ed, Dean French, had meetings with folks from the Vermont School Board Association, Vermont Superintendents Association, president of the executive director of the special ed administrator group, and the Vermont business managers sent a letter as well. I'm not sure. They've been requesting that this stop or slow down because there are some legal questions about whether they can even do it. So it was very interesting. I had a long conversation with the president of the Vermont Council of Special Ed Administrators. I've been appointed by the governor to the Special Ed Advisory Council, which is a council that federal law says we have to have. Dan French appointed me, and the governor appointed me as the superintendent rep. I was not trying to get out of it, but there were some questions about membership and too many people, and I had some questions. Do you really need me there? Is this what you need? And they said, no, you gotta be there. These are the things that are going on right now. And we need somebody who understands special ed finance. If you can think about the fact that we spend millions of dollars, school districts our size, spend millions of dollars with in contracts for special ed needs, whether it's placements in other schools or contracts in schools. And if a third or 2/3 of that had to come from general education instead of special ed, that would be a huge funding shift. Depending on, there were also no guidelines about what it would look like or how much it was very disheartening. So I think there could be something in the press at some point, Vermont Digger or something about it. And I wanted you to know that, we're on top of it.
Are they going to implement it or do they back off?
We haven't heard. We haven't heard. Right now, all my contracts are sitting on a desk waiting. I'm not signing a thing until I get some.
Wow, that is major when you think of places like the Laraway School. And they've been there for 50 or more years. And they depend on that income.
Well, we'd still be sending the money. It's just whether it would be reimbursable or not.
I bet within a year, schools would be looking much more closely in those discussions about whether they were going or not.
Well, I do know that we've been approached by some of our partner mental health agencies to say, what are things going to look like under this law change because they have to be structuring themselves to support our kids. We're all in the same business to support our kids who are really struggling. But it's a matter of, do they have to shift their funding structure? Do we have to make shifts? All of that takes time. You can't send a memo out and say in 2 weeks everything's going to be
I
different.
didn't realize the agency had that kind of authority,
Nor did I.
nor do they, probably.
So
Be interested.
more to come. I just was sharing, I attended a keynote yesterday in Stowe with our literacy coaches, put on by, oh goodness gracious, it's PLL. It used to be Vermont Reads Initiative. And they have done a wonderful literacy audit for us and invited us up to see this keynote speaker. And it was really about engagement in children's learning. And it was very positive, and it was really wonderful to be there with all of our literacy leaders talking about the difference between compliance and engagement, and how we talk less about motivating kids and talk about engaging them and what those differences are. So it was really, it was a wonderful day and a very moving speaker. I did want to share one activity that happened with our after-school summer programming. We had a grant from Vermont Works for Women, and it's a camp called Rosie's Girls that happened in the Ag Building for a week this summer. And you give a girl a power tool, and a lot more than learning how to use it happens. It was really wonderful. We had great, we had these young women look very empowered. And they were building, they were learning about science and technology, and it's also a great way to encourage women into fields where they traditionally are not thinking that's a career for them. And we need more people, men and women, to join our trades, because we just don't have enough.
I could have hired one of them today.
Yeah, well, they were,
Chris probably could too.
it was a terrific opportunity, and we're very grateful for that grant from Vermont Works for Women, and we're hoping that they will do that again for us next year.
How much was the grant for? How much was it?
$5,400,
That's cheap.
so that the kids could come without having to pay.
That's great.
Wonderful.
Kosha has shared with you some information from her, talking about the literacy audit that we did from Partnership in Literacy and Learning. That's what PLL stands for. And we had interviews with principals. There were surveys from each teacher, literacy coach interviews, and they shared the information with us. It was a great day early in the summer to sit in a room with our principals. We did it one school at a time, and Sheldon did come because they were a part of it. And we looked at their strengths and areas for growth in terms of literacy and learning. And a lot of what they talked about, it was wonderful because we're doing a lot of things very well. And they talked a great deal about trying to be holistic with reading and to have kids have more choice and time reading text authentically, and have opportunity for kids to have more joy in reading, which was wonderful. But talked about having vision for literacy instruction in our school, and that is something Kosha is working with reading teachers around. And so I will have, this is in the folder for you all to look at and read. And upcoming events, we have the administrators retreat next week, where we're talking about visioning and 5-year planning, and then on the 13th we'll be doing a supervision and evaluation training with a new tool that we're using.
Is that here in the area, is your retreat?
It is at the Abbey. Away but not away.
Oh, that's good.
I wanted a place where people could walk and have conversations.
Get the trio.
Yep. And new teacher training is also next week here in the Swanton Library. And then the in-service begins for all teachers. Some teachers are starting on the 19th, but most are coming between the 20th and the 22nd. And school starts on August 28th. MVU 7th and 9th grade is the day before. But it's coming up fast.
too fast.
It is. Wendy has an overview from the early childhood program. Her focus has been getting classrooms licensed and students ready for the first day. And she's sharing with you some of the back to school sessions that'll happen when her teachers come back. Trauma-informed practices for teachers, flip it strategy for transforming challenging behavior. So flipping that bad behavior into something more pro-social and addressing the needs. The Connect for Learning curriculum work that's been going on, and Handle with Care training, which is a training for the physical management of students who need support that way. And again, multi-tiered strategies and mandated child development division trainings need to happen every year, and so she makes sure those get done. And we do partner with Maple Run, so the two districts get together, and it's great to have all of the early childhood teachers learning from one another sometimes, and it also helps with the cost of trainers and planning for professional development. And so,
Wendy's who we met last.
Wendy is who you met last time.
Okay.
What's the first day of school for our elementary school students?
28th.
Oh, yeah.
Yep,
Wednesday.
it is Wednesday.
Except kindergartners. This is the next week.
Okay. Sorry, I don't have that in my head.
I might.
Do we do still do
You have a kindergartner?
I do.
It's been a long time.
We used to do school visits the first.
Yes,
week or two.
some of the schools may start kindergarten the first day of school, and other schools
just-
may do it a
I
different.
just know.
They're already got signs up for parent-teacher conferences.
My mother told me today she can't wait for schools to start.
My 8-year-old is dying to go back.
I think most kids are ready.
So,
On my eyes.
not in your house?
No, probably not.
My senior's not dying to go back.
My
After
daughter
a month there, they'll be ready
loves
for
going
a
to
break,
school. I
but
asked her
right
the other
now,
day, "You ready to go back?"
field days is over. It's just,
Not really.
It's like some free time.
Yeah, but it's been working a little bit, so it's making some money.
Everybody, if you can, yep.
We all have to sign up?
Some of our, it's up to you, we can adjust it if you want, but in some of the local boards used to have just the finance committee sign, some had everyone sign, so I went with everyone.
Did she send it to Michael?
Okay, on to future agenda items. ESBA discussion. Possible truancy policies. I mean, this is an opportunity if you want something put in the agenda. You know, these are some of the ideas we talked about.
I got
Sure.
So I've been the past two, even though I had to leave early last time. When it's, I'm probably gonna slaughter her name, Kosha. Kosha. Okay. Gave her presentations, and I've been thinking a lot about it. And she keeps mentioning that there's going to be a continuous improvement plan set in place, and that our science is really, really low. And then she says, well, the whole state of Vermont science is really low, which is sad as well. But
Everybody has this.
I want to know when we're going to see something drawn up for continuous improvement plan on the science, so we can start getting that back up.
I would be happy to have, I think it might be great for you to meet with Kosha to go over what the continuous improvement plans look like. If that might be a good thing to do. And I would welcome anybody who wants to do that. We've shared them broadly, but they're very prescribed in terms of their format, in terms of the kind of strategies that we can have. But I would love to have you talk with Kosha about some of this.
I'm very interested, and
Yeah.
it just makes me very sad. And
Well, it's frustrating because we do have a new science test, and we have been working on our curriculum, and we're trying to align it from pre-K through 12th grade. And that committee's been working and doing a lot of, the next part, I think, would be around assessment. And but we haven't seen our results for the science test yet. So it's a little difficult to
And I
make
understand
spec-
that, but
yeah.
them being so low to me when she showed, when she put the presentation, It just,
Oh, absolutely. It's a
it really
concern.
bothers me. And to the point where I was asking my daughter's friends, not saying, hey, school board, anything to do with that, but like, hey, what do you about science? Or, what are your thoughts about your science classes? And, and if they don't like them or what different. And, and actually, so a lot of the friends in she'll be in 8th grade this year, said disorganization was a huge thing.
There has been a lot of work with a consultant around improving and working with instruction in science. And that's something that has been an area of focus. So I will let Coach know that you're interested and I'll.
Yep.
Thank you.
Another topic that we had talked about in previous meeting was the VSBA coming. Is this something we're still interested in having them come and present what they provide for us? Because there's been some concern that we're not getting our value of what we pay in. But this would be an opportunity that we can hear their side, see what they offer, more than just Act 46.
I have been an advocate for having them come. I'm on the regional board, represent Franklin County. I will tell you this, that our executive director has resigned, effective in November. And we are in public meeting, and I think that some good things have happened there, but a number of members on occasion have raised some questions. And when I say members, I don't mean just the members at large, but some of the members of the committee that meets there monthly. I hope things work out well for the organization and for Nicole. But I think that this is an opportunity for people like us, our membership, to really tell people what they want, what the priorities should be.
Yep.
And I think the biggest issue, and I saw it when I was in the legislature and I see it now, is what is it the school districts expect their executive committee and that staff to do in the legislature? Because that's where, to be honest with you, my perception as board members, they got in trouble. They really got in trouble. And I think some of it was because of lack of experience, but there were tough times. And they got caught in a kind of a backlash, and I don't think we have recovered from it. So, to have them come, I think could be wise. I don't know who would come or what they would say, but I do think you're going to see some changes in the wind, and I think that it would be good for us to be proactive, because I think some of our members of the public and some of our board members have raised questions about why was this done? Why was this done? So it'd be good.
So at this point, I would say reach out and see what our options are at this point, given their turnover.
Yes, I know Nicole will be back next week, so I can reach out to her and see what she thinks would make the most sense. I don't think we want to wait until a new person, unless they get somebody quickly. It may make sense to have.
They are in Enosburg. By the way, we have regional meetings every year.
Yep.
And this one is in Enosburg in September. Julie can send us
good.
all the dates, but it just came out at our last meeting. They're coming to Enosburg. It's
That'll be
usually
great.
been in Winooski, because we're in a big region. We're reorganizing regions too. But it's been Winooski or St. Albans. And I think it's great that it's going to come to Enosburg. So whenever that is, it'd be great if we had a presence there, because that's how you get other people to know our concerns. And people may be sitting there having a concern but not want to voice it, but if we're there, it would be good.
Well, and I think that, if people are unhappy with an action that the executive board took, then it would be a discussion about how you want to, do you want to write them a letter? Do you want to do, there are things that we can talk about. So,
Timing is one of our biggest issues. Something happens, how do you get membership input and do it? But
well, it
I
would
think
also be interesting as an opportunity if they are looking for a new executive director.
Yep.
And the board has some thoughts about the kind of direction. That's not a bad thing to have. Give input. So I'll reach out.
So, any other future topics you want to bring up tonight? Or?
just the negotiations thing at
Yeah.
some point, whether it's a full board wants to meet or the committees want to meet, then the full board, but don't want it, time flies quickly.
Yes, it does. Okay. On to our future meeting dates. Our next scheduled meeting is August 20th in Franklin at 6:30. Julie and I also looked at the schedules. One of the things we talked about last meeting is how to pair the schools. So,
Did we? s-
there you go. So this will be in our email packet as a link, right? Through the drives or however state that. So basically, whenever we have our first meeting of the month at MVU, the previous elementary school that hosted, so let's use the November 19th, Franklin hosts. So the very next meeting, they'll be paired with MVU, and it'll just go through the schedule that way. So December 17th, Highgate hosts, so they'll be paired with MVU the very next meeting. And we'll just keep that rotation rolling.
That's great.
And then that way, nobody's never at home, or, you know, everybody gets a chance to be at home and brag, and at the same time, everybody gets paired with MVU. So,
I'm sorry, what's the CO?
Central office. So there'll be updates at the first. I didn't want to. So this I'll send to, this will be in the drive, and I'll make sure the administrators have it, so they know when they're on deck.
yeah.
Well, not on deck, on.
So, having no need for executive session, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Before you do that, can we just have a question? Jim, do you want to plan, like at the MV, when we meet at MVU, to have a report, or you just want to kind of wing it like you?
I'm planning on having a meeting, hopefully before school starts. I've talked with a couple committee members. There's a lot of things I have that have been coming to me that I have a lot of questions about. So I want to discuss them after with Julie, and just to see if she's up to speed with what I'm hearing. Just because my concerns are, I think the administration does a lot of stuff that the board and superintendent aren't aware of, and vice versa. So, and that's always been one of my concerns over the last couple of years, that too many people don't have the knowledge they need to make the proper decisions because they're left out. So yeah, Don, I've been a little lax. Like I said, I haven't been to meetings, just because of the merger stuff going on and so much stuff. But a lot of good things have happened for this year for ag. But for the 2 steps we took forward, we went back 2 to 3 steps. We've lost a teacher. They're trying to reorganize different things, and I think it's going to be a problem. But I don't want to get into too much right now because I'm not sure. I hear things secondhand, so I just want to discuss different things.
Yep.
Oh, and that's a good process. As I say, Eric and I were on the MVU board, so we know a little bit about how we worked with you to try to get that program on a positive note. I want to keep it there. But yes, you need to work with Julie, and then she will decide what we need to know and what we need to do. Because I think, again, I mentioned Richard, who's no longer with us, but I think both Richard and I had some concerns. I'd worked with that program a number of years ago as a consultant, maybe 15 years ago. And I've had the State Agency of Education here when I was a senator. So that program does mean a lot to me, but I think it means a lot to people.
I think it means a lot to our community.
It sure does.
There's a lot of good things that happen. Our enrollment is up. So it's just that we're having problems with teachers in moving around, and I don't know if we're just not getting out there with the advertisement of getting somebody here. And like I said, I don't know if everybody's up to speed on what is going on. And like I said, I don't want to get into it now because I got to discuss more with Julie and see.
Protocol is Julie.
But yeah, we're hoping to move forward as gently as we can without making waves. But I think it's going to come to a point, Don, where there's going to be some waves.
Waves never hurt anybody.
So we'll see. But thank you.
Thank you, Chris, for letting me interrupt you, because And I wanted to hear from Jim. Didn't know he had anything to say, but wanted to hear from him.
Sure. So once again, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Just one quick, so we're here tonight because MVU's under construction, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Where, are they on schedule or
They are still
everything's
on
going
schedule.
well?
I have a meeting tomorrow morning. Yep, we're hoping to be ready for teacher in service, and definitely before kids come on the 28th. That's the schedule.
Just wanna
A
make
lot
sure
of it's gonna
everything's-
be right before.
Okay.
It'll be a long weekend. Been there. 20 hours on the, couple days.
Some of the stuff's shipping in like right before, so.
It always comes down to materials.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adjourning at 8:15, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.